Hi guys, this is Survi, and I'm an alum of PGP 15. I'm very good. Very glad to be here today. It's going to be a very interesting session. A background about myself. I'm the founder of the Mom Store. It's a mother and baby products lifestyle company, which I started 2 years ago. And today we will be holding a panel discussion on women entrepreneurship. But let me get to some facts first. Less than 5% of IM graduates every year take up entrepreneurship. And out of that 5%, less than 10% are women. So, which is what makes this panel even more special because not only all the women on this panel who I'm going to introduce now are women, they are also all from the same batch, which is PGP 15 of IM Kozhikode. So let's begin with some introductions. And we have here with us Mansi, who runs Women in Blockchain. And Mansi, over to you. Just tell us a little about your journey and what motivated you to start up.
Sure. Thank you, Sabi, for having me today. And this is definitely a batch of rock stars. You can see all the examples today on this panel, PGP 15. My background, so most of my career has been in the banking industry. I moved to the US in 2015, so it's been 6 years since I moved here. And I had a 1 year long stint on Wall Street before I now moved to Boston. And over the years worked in wealth management, corporate banking, project management, range of different banking sectors. But there was an interesting change in my career 2 years back when I founded Women in Blockchain, and I can go more into details why I did that, what our mission is. But basically we realized that there aren't enough women in tech overall in general, and now you add tech and finance together, and that's what blockchain is, and that makes it even worse. And we wanted to have this conversation really early on, not 10 years down the line when blockchain technology is ubiquitous, but right at the beginning, so we can do this right. And so our mission is to increase diversity in the blockchain space and break down barriers to entry for women.
Great to have you on the panel, Mansi, and so good catching up with you. Next, we have Deepa, who runs a sports digital marketing agency called Gourmet.
Hey,
Deepa, over.
hi. It feels wonderful to be a part of the panel. Like Mansi rightly said, yes, it is always a batch of rock stars, and not just the members of the panel today. I think there are many more rock stars in the entire batch of PGP 15, irrespective of whether they've taken up entrepreneurship or otherwise. They've been
Father,
doing
that
great.
we are not the only entrepreneurs.
Yes, of
We are
course.
a
We have a lot of other people actually from the
but
same
that's
batch.
not it. We have more entrepreneurs from our
Yes,
batch. We're currently
yes,
not at that batch.
absolutely. We were probably the youngest batch. I think ratio wise, I think we were more on the younger side as compared to all other batches. But somehow we always have stood apart, and that actually is a great feeling. So a little introduction about my company. We started about 3 years ago. We've been a little older than 3 years now. Um, Having had the experience and the pleasure of working with several sports media and marketing companies, some of us, a bunch of us friends, we realized that we can probably explore a little more with a greater degree of freedom. There is always a limitation when you're working for a larger organization because there comes certain policies that you'll have to think about your organization while you're thinking about your client. But when you're on your own, you can probably expand a little more. So, which is why we sort of took a call to go out on our own, and we've had a wonderful experience. We've worked with amazing projects. We've dabbled in a lot of things in sports, not just marketing, but other verticals of sports management as well. Yeah, so it's been a good journey so far. Facing challenges is a part of the journey, but I would call it overall, it's a very good learning experience.
That's great. So we also have with us on our panel Upalika, who's part of the founding team of an artisanal gourmet ice cream brand called the Fat Penguin. So Upalika, let's hear it out from you. What's motivated you to start this journey and food and ice cream? That sounds interesting.
Thanks so much, Surbi. Hi, everyone. So glad to be here. As Surbi mentioned, I'm also from the PGP 15 batch. Little bit about myself. I worked across patent research as well as logistics for about 5.5 years, typically on the business development side. But from the longest time that I can remember, food has always been sort of very close to my heart. Always wanted something in that space. And so in February, sometime in the beginning of 2019, I finally took the plunge into my entrepreneurial journey, and I co-created the Fat Little Penguin. It's an artisanal ice cream brand. So what we do is we're trying to bring a little bit of funk, a lot of flair to the ice cream sort of space in Calcutta. Uh, one of the things that also motivated us was the fact that the even if you go to the best restaurant cafe, even to the best Michelin star restaurants, it's a space that's predominantly sort of dominated by men in the kitchen. There are not a lot of women in that particular area. So we wanted to sort of create a small dent in that. We also have 4 people on board who work with us in the kitchen as sous chefs, and we also want to sort of train them to give them a platform to also break through in this space. Yeah, that's about me. Thank you for having me.
That's great, and we will be coming back to you with more questions.
Absolutely.
Next on the panel is Ritika, who has started an experiential learning company called Freebirds. So, Ritika, that sounds really interesting. Tell us what is your company about, and I know there's an interesting backstory to it as well. So, yeah, please share it.
Yeah, so hi everyone. I'm Ritika Barua again from the PGP 15 batch. So my story actually goes back to our batch in PGP 15. And it was 2013 when, this idea had shaped in my mind. And finally, I took the entrepreneurial plunge only last year when I did multiple pilots to finalize what product it should be and what Freebirds should be. So I don't know how many of the batch people who are watching remember, but we had a Facebook group between some of us, and it was called Freebirds. And we used to debate and discuss about what education should be, what learning should be, and does education stop when you graduate, or how can you be a lifelong learner? Like some of us are so curious, or always were so curious. Like I would love to be in the culturals club. I was doing social service, there were multiple things I was always interested in, and they were very experiential because there's only so much you can learn from books, right? Or it's only so much you can learn from others. There are things that you need to experience yourself, like, for example, swimming. You have to swim in the ocean to know how it feels like. So we had always dabbled with that concept. So that's when I had come up with the idea of Free Birds, a platform that connects everyone, a community of people who are free thinkers, creators, doers, and there's a possibility for everyone to express themselves and immerse into new experiences and learn something and grow richer out of it. So that's when it was an idea. It took me multiple roles in India and Africa and learning in Harvard to come up with finally the product, which is Freebirds, a platform for learning experiences. Learning is a term you will see we don't use anywhere because learning brings you already in a box. It's a platform that lets you learn and unlearn and explore and discover something. So yeah, this is a little bit about my journey.
That's nice. That's great. I'm sure lots of viewers will also have very interesting questions about your journey and so on. But before that, last on the panel is one of the superwomen of the batch, Khushbu Agarwal, who started her startup, Zyla. And congratulations to Khushbu. She also recently became a mom, and still she's here with us on this panel. Welcome, Khushbu. Very, very glad to have you here.
Thank you, Surbi. So good to see all of you. I'm almost nostalgic seeing all the faces in the backdrop of this screen right now. And doesn't feel like 7 years, does it? It's just, I think, been an amazing journey to be a part of PGP 15 from the very start. So yes, my story, is basically from the very beginning. I've been into healthcare from my Bits Pilani days and even thereafter. And I was doing healthcare consulting with Deloitte for many years, primarily in the US market. So I was helping big pharma, big insurance companies deliver better products, go to market in an easier way, and even launch patient engagement solutions. So the epiphany moment actually happened for me in 2015 when I was busy with such a project in the US, thinking I'm changing healthcare for the world. And my own father, sitting in India, had an unfortunate complication of diabetes. He's doing all fine now, but the learning there was that even when I was working in a developed market and focusing on products to improve the last 1%, in India, the 99% was messed up. And primarily because, there is zero accountability in the way healthcare is delivered in India, right? In the developed markets, there is insurance or the government that maintains an audit trail that reimburses a doctor and a provider for the care they provide, so they're accountable for the quality of care and outcomes. In India, it's all out of pocket, it's self-pay, and no one really cares. Because of lack of continuity of care, because of lack of monitoring, because of lack of reading symptoms, very, very severe symptoms such as pain in left arm that my dad faced, and he was given a sleeping pill thinking that he's under stress. So these are severe instances which led me to think that I'm not using my skill right. I took a short break in Ladakh in 2016. I know it's filmy, but you need time off when you need to actually give birth to an idea. And that's when I came up with Zyla. Zyla stands for a female confidant in Hebrew. And that's what I wanted to create. So we've created this platform which provides real-time, continuous, the most personalized care for a long-term health condition patient right at their home on their phone. And we do it in a way that is tech-backed. So we use AI as a chatbot, but we don't stop there. On top of it, we've layered it with a very, very empathetic human team that handles the 10% escalations that come from the chatbot. So all in all, it's end-to-end care that takes care of the patient, what they need to do on a daily basis, from their lifestyle to their medicine to their emotional health. We even involve the caregivers, and we've seen some very terrific results. We've been able to save lives. We've been able to save the heart attacks and kidney failures which happen in patients with diabetes and BP because of the real-time interventions that we do. And I think it's all thanks to a terrific team I have. We now have a team of 40 based out of Gurgaon, and it's all thanks to them that we do such amazing things every day.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Khushbu, for the wonderful introduction. And I have known about your journey in the last 2.5 years, and the amount you have grown, as an entrepreneur as well as the company is totally incredible. But talking about healthcare and the current situation of pandemic, and given that you provide your customers of end-to-end healthcare, solutions and all, how have you seen the pandemic impacting your business? And have you seen more customers? Because COVID is also a syndrome where people with comorbidities like diabetes need more help.
Right.
So, what has your experience been during the last few months?
Right. So, I mean, mixed emotions, right? The world is going through a roller coaster ride, and it's so overwhelming. At the same time, business-wise, virtual health has picked up like never before. So we see that people are accepting the solution a lot more than before. We saw a 40% increase month on month in our patient traction from B2C. We also saw a very active interest from partners such as big pharma and big insurance companies. And now we're onboarding their lakhs of patients to provide them real-time care because, patients are very, very scared or skeptical to go to a hospital setup. So, these companies are trying to provide the same, higher quality care even right at home. So we have seen a growth in business. What I would say is that the most important thing which has happened in India is an increase in awareness, because we see that patients with comorbidities, as Subhi mentioned, will have more severe symptoms. They are more prone to infections, right, because of lower immunity. So these people have now taken it upon themselves to not take the disease lightly and actually act. And the action from the patient is paramount in the success of healthcare delivery. So those two things coming together, a lot of sponsors in the market for such care and patients taking a larger role in their own active healthcare has led to a massive improvement in the uptake for us.
Great. And talking about the challenges which come with the pandemic, and Ritika, you spoke about your startup being in experiential learning. How have you coped up with the fact that it's a lockdown and everybody needs to stay at home, whereas your idea was first about going out and experiencing things physically. So, what has how have you coped up with the startup that you're running?
Right. So, like the word experiences, right? When you experience something, it has to be with all your five senses. So, you need to be physically present there. And initially, the idea itself for Freebirds was everybody's, too much into apps today. They are learning through too many apps today. They are working in school, learning in school, coming back home, doing coaching, tuitions, and again learning when it comes to the Gen Z. And even, people from our people, the millennials are also doing the same. The whole idea was to take them out of that and get to feel things, get to experience things, and get to learn them firsthand. So I had never ever imagined that it would be, online. It was always offline. In fact, when the pandemic had started, I was doing a boot camp for women entrepreneurs in the northeast of India and trying to bring them into the experiences industry and trying to teach them, trying to work with them to figure out how to curate unique experiences in Northeast India. And I was doing that specifically for women. So I was telling this earlier to Deepa and Upalika. In fact, when all this, mayhem started, I was in Zero in Arunachal, working with women there on how to, curate experiences in Arunachal. And I was about to take a bus to Nagaland in Kohima to work with women there, and everything was scheduled when Nagaland closed its borders and there was an announcement coming up. That's when I had a gut feel that it's time to move and it's time to go back to base. And then, as an entrepreneur, all of you know that we have to come up with creative solutions again and again. And that's a daily life for us. So I came back to Bangalore a day before they announced the lockdown. And I reached here and I started to think that, what to do next. So I thought that why not take this online? Now, how do we keep the sense of experiences online? That was a key question for me. Because if you want to learn anything, you can go to Coursera, you can go to YouTube. If you want to get better at academics, there are multiple apps to do that. How do you bring experiences there? So that's when I decided a couple of criteria, which, once you know the core of what your mission is, then it's easier to come up with creative solutions around that. So I decided number one, none of the experiences have to be anything that is of passive consumption. It has to be something that's about active exploration, which means that the host and the attendee must be interacting with each other. So they have to be live. So all our experiences are always live, and every person attends it and gets special focus from the teacher or from the host, whoever is taking that experience, so that both the host and the learner go through it together. So that's what we maintained. And I reached out to a couple of people in the network who were doing offline experiences and asked them, can you take this online? And I remember the first experience was one person from Bangalore, Saurav, very grateful to him because he said, yes, I think I can. So he used to do this small world cultural immersions where you take a person through that country live or in a physical location. So, for example, if it's Iran, then he will take the person through Iran's food recipes, through workshops on art, on culture, etc., in Bangalore itself. So we took the entire thing to virtual and we said we launched it and we asked people to join us. And I remember it was Pakistani immersion, one of the first few we did. And we reached out to people from Pakistan. Today, while I'm speaking to you, there's a Moroccan cultural immersion happening on Freebirds. And the beauty of it was when we were doing those experiences, we could actually get people from Morocco to do the experience. So now, today, while I'm speaking to you, there are people attending an experience walking through the streets of Morocco virtually and learning recipes of Morocco, learning the language of Morocco right now virtually. So it's all about coming up with creative solutions, I feel, whenever you face a certain roadblock or a certain, new thing. So that's what we did at Freebirds.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
just echoing what Ritika said, one of our objectives of Women in Blockchain is definitely educating women about this technology. And before COVID, most of our events were local, right? Because we would hold them in person. But maybe it's a blessing in disguise. We've now moved online. Having done that, these educational events, these workshops, hands-on coding platforms are now available to people across the world. Even people in India, hopefully, can now join and benefit from these educational sessions. And not just from the user perspective, but also being able to reach out to speakers around the world has become easier now, and they are more available. So I think there are a lot of challenges that has come up with COVID and managing your startup, but at the same time, there are some positives that have come out of it.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with what Mansi and Ritika have said. And I think when the going gets tough, the tough have to get going. And the life of the entrepreneur is about that. That, how do you pivot yourself in a challenging situation? At my startup, also at the mom store, we were an e-commerce company, and our entire bread and butter comes from the products that we sell to our customers. So when the lockdown started, it was like uncharted waters for us. We didn't know how we'll be able to sustain the business for the next 2 months. And most of the e-commerce companies and brands in India had started shutting down their website for non-essentials, which were no longer allowed to ship.
Hmm.
So what we decided to do is that we have always been a very customer-centric company, always interacting with our customers throughout our social media channels. So we decided that we let the orders come in and in touch with the customers. If they want to cancel it at a later stage, they will be allowed to do that. And the result of this was unprecedented because since we are into mostly maternity and infant wear, a lot of people in India had not any such an extended lockdown at that time. And what happened is that the sale grew manifold because there were no other companies accepting orders at that time. As well as people in India also have many social cultural beliefs to not buy anything for the baby till the last moment. And so all of this led to getting a lot of orders, and then we didn't know whether we will actually be able to fulfill them. But we spoke to our customers, created a priority list of who's going to deliver sooner, and then we shipped out all the orders the day the lockdown opened. And that the whole instinct of not giving up really, really helped us see that uptick. And so I completely agree that whenever there is an entrepreneur can never run out of ideas, and whenever there is a challenging situation, you have to deal with that. So talking of challenging situations, Palika, let's get back to you and hear something from you. Food business is hyper local, and you have been running the cloud kitchen. What are the challenges that you have seen in your business, pandemic or not, as a woman entrepreneur or otherwise?
That's a great question, Surbi. So for us, typically because we're so small scale, we sort of wanted to target the Calcutta market. It helps us because my business partner and me are from here, so we sort of know a little bit about the market. But in general, if you have this kind of a business, which is especially in terms of ice creams, because in terms of the logistics, it's very difficult to go big unless you have that kind of bandwidth. So starting off from Calcutta, one of the things that we sort of faced as a challenge was, if you're not sort of operating at those economies of scale, how can you sort of maintain your cost to a minimum? In the food and beverage industry, it's considered prudent to have your food as well as packaging costs as a maximum of 30% of the product revenue. So for us, in terms of uh, purchasing raw materials, ingredients, packaging, etc., at costs which were low enough for us to sort of survive in the beginning at a small scale, was tough. The second thing is, since you're again dealing to a hyperlocal market, there are sort of existing or fixed consumer choices and patterns, and you can't sort of just pick and choose, from like a huge set. So we had to do a lot of product trials to kind of figure out, what are the, hey, maybe a peanut butter and jelly ice cream will work in Calcutta, or what level of sweetness do they want. What are the kind of channels that you can sort of effectively reach out to people through. For example, in Calcutta, it's a small place. It's typically many steps behind a Bombay or a Delhi or a Hyderabad even. So here, offline marketing and word of mouth and social networking in person helps a lot. So these were some of the things that we had to work around and help us in sort of building our brand from scratch.
Yeah. I agree. Challenges are there in any business, and I think as an entrepreneur, you always have to see how to get around that challenge and make it work.
Absolutely.
Right. And so, Deepa, please share some of your experiences about the challenges that you have faced. I know that you've been in the sporting industry, and that is male dominated. So, are there any instances that you faced any challenges as a woman entrepreneur? What's just your take on, entrepreneurship being a woman? Is it any different, or you feel that
So, so
it is
I
not?
wouldn't call it very different from any other industry as such. I think we are in a country where most of the industries are predominantly male dominated. Whether you like it or not, that's a fact that we have to live with. But I think we women have picked up and become very smart to know our way around, and it's not very different in sports industry as well. Women in sports is still a very niche number, although a lot of improvements have happened. A lot of women have shown tremendous achievements in both sports and the business of sport, which has been inspirational and motivational to all of us. When we talk about achievers like Sanya, Saina, Sindhu, even, they inspire younger women to actually take sports professionally. And while we talk about the business of sport, we have Rita Dani, who started Ultimate Table Tennis. We have Neeta Ambani, who actually lives by the example of helping, through her Sports for All organization and Reliance Foundation. So there are a lot of inspirational stories. If you're open to ideas, if you're open to the willpower, if you're open to the inspiration around, the opportunities are there. You just have to be smart enough to actually pick them up. And whether pandemic or not, you just have to be strong enough to not give up. Like you rightly said, what you did with your business store. So the very idea of not giving up, uh, to decide to survive through all the difficult situations that you might face, even if it is not a very pandemic situation. Even I think most of the businesses, early stage, I think for the initial 3 to 4 years at least, most of the entrepreneurs face a lot of challenges. Whether it is getting the right workforce, the skill that is required for your business success, or identifying the right talent to actually hire, or cutting costs in terms of minimalizing your investments into projects which actually make commercial sense, taking up projects which actually add on value to your business, especially when you're in the consulting side of the business, as we are actually. So we do a lot of sports brand consulting. So when you're consulting for a lot of brands, when you are taking up projects, a lot of things looks very exciting for you. And as an early stage entrepreneur, you might not always make the right decision, and you will learn from your mistakes. But the key thing is to actually make up your mind not to give up. So you need to take every failure as an experience. You need to have the mindset to bounce back. You need to think about solutions, you know, than just bog down yourself with problems. I think that was the key to the challenges that we faced as a women entrepreneur. Yes, because I operate in a male dominated industry, there are several entry level challenges. But I think, with your right attitude, with your right willpower to sustain, if you go about building your network within this industry, eventually you are recognized for your talent, you are recognized for your skill, you're recognized for your way of working in professionalism, and that's what we should all aim at. That's what I think.
I think that's talking in like great spirit, and you rightly said that the first 3-4 years of a startup are the most challenging because it takes an idea to become a startup, and then it takes more challenges for a startup to actually become a proper business, revenue generating business and a company. So, just wanted to, on this topic, get back to Mansi and ask them, how do you think about scaling your business, or it's a non-profit, right? Women in blockchain. So, how do you think, you'll be able to scale and reach out to more women? What are your plans? Do you want to go global with it? I think right now it's based in the US, but there are women in finance and tech everywhere who are waiting to get noticed. So, what are your plans for women in blockchain?
Sure, definitely. Thanks, Survi. So here I'm wearing two different hats. I have a full-time role at a Boston-based startup as well, where I'm the VP of Strategy and Operations. So there is a scaling challenge there, which is unique to a for-profit organization. And then I'm the founder of Women Blockchain, which is a nonprofit, as you mentioned. And the scaling challenges there are totally different. But just to give an analogy of being a woman in tech, I read somewhere that running a startup is the same as flying in a plane that you're building while you're flying, but also selling tickets to it while you're making it. That it's going to Disneyland and getting everyone excited about it. Now, to add on to that, being a woman in this space is flying that plane in a thunderstorm. So it just compounds the challenges that are involved. There are biases against women. Women are supposed to act a certain way. Funding is a big challenge. We know by data, it's not even anecdotal at this point that women founders are not well funded, not equally funded as their male counterparts. So there are different challenges, but right now I do want to focus on the positives. You can see the women on this panel have achieved what they wanted to. So the message that I want to give is if you're passionate about this, you can create a space for yourself. And people like Grace Hoppers in the past and Sheryl Sandbergs of the past have created an opening for us, and we should do the same for the next generation. So I remember when I started Women Blockchain, there was a woman VC who gave me the guidance. I didn't know where to get started, how to go ahead with it, what direction to take it in, and she mentored me. And I keep that with me, and I try to do that back for other people. In terms of scaling, I think the biggest thing that you can do is hire people who are equally passionate about it. You have to realize that you, as a single person or even co-founders, cannot do everything. You have to recognize what things you are good at and what you're not, and identify other potential people that can help you grow in your team.
Yeah, I completely agree with that point, Mansi. Because several times I feel like if I could just duplicate myself and get the work done faster, so it becomes really important to hire the right people to grow your startup and share your passion. It's not easy, but that's what helps the company grow. Because as and when we scale, the our bandwidth gets limited, and we can't actually be everywhere and do everything. So I think you
Hmm.
raised a very valid point, but which brings me to another point is funding. So I think a lot of startups, and Khushbu, I'm going to come to you with this question because you've been able to scale Zyla pretty quickly in the last past 3.5 years, and also raised 2 rounds of funding. I wanted to ask you, how challenging has that been? Given healthcare again is a male-dominated industry, but at the same time, you seem to have cracked it, and has raising funds been a challenge, or how do you plan to scale your business given that you have taken that path?
Right. Thank you, Survi. First of all, you're being very, very humble. And like the other women here, I think I've done as much as all of you have. It's just a matter of timing and the readiness of your product that when and how you raise funding. So I would say that we were very lucky to uh, get the right investors at the right time. Because Mansi mentioned the analogy of flying a plane. I would like to use the same one that I believe, you should raise funds when you know how to fly the plane and you know that the extra fuel will help you scale the heights faster, not before you know how to fly the plane, right? By that I mean, you should have your product ready and in the hands of at least a critical mass that's loving it, right? And secondly, you should have enough growth levers identified that that are not linear. So which means I know this is my product, and if I have extra fuel, this is where I will use it to grow my startup in a non-linear way. Before that, raising money can actually lead to a lot of distractions. So I would say raising at the right time is very critical. Finding the right people is very important. So, for example, for us, we wanted to find people who understand the need, who have seen this problem in their families, who know that this needs to be fixed and fast in India, and who would actually understand that how much time it will take and what all it will entail to get to the final 100 million patients. So those two were the very important things. I don't think I feel that it's a male dominated industry or entrepreneurship is male dominated. Maybe I've just been lucky given my support from family investors, etc. 70% of my team is women. I try not to be biased, but somehow I always end up finding great women. So raising money has helped us in few ways, right? Number one is as all of you mentioned, hiring great talent, right? And by that I mean not just hiring people with XYZ skill set, but the right mindset and people who would come challenge you as a the founder. People who are even better than you, who you can learn from, and that talent is expensive, right? So you need to hire great talent to build a great product that millions of people will use. Second, it gives you speed to market, right? So without that extra fuel, you'd be using your own money, and entrepreneurs have found that
Did we lose her?
Yeah, I think, Khushbu, are you still with
I
us?
think that.
I think till the
yes, I'm
time.
here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, go on, go on. I think
Hello.
we lost you for a second.
Sorry. Yeah, I was just saying the last bit is around credibility, because you would need introductions in the market. So we are going out to market with our product.
I think,
It really helps when you have that backing in the background.
yeah. I think we missed a part of it, but whatever Khushbu said makes a lot of sense because hiring great talent is extremely essential for a startup. Having a good business model to to have before you actually enter the investment shoot and start to scale your business is completely essential. And all the points that she said are very valid. And I'm sure there are a lot of people in the audience right now, students who are still studying in PGP, in IMK, as well as our batchmates or our seniors or people who passed out after us who have a lot of questions. So I think. So, we'll just have a quick round of, what are the 2 cents coming from the entrepreneurs here, that they can advise to the budding entrepreneurs who are wanting to take that move or that, but they are not yet decided. So, Kritika, why don't you, talk about uh, anybody who wants to become an entrepreneur but is not decided yet, what are the key decisions that they need to think about before actually taking the plunge?
Right. So I'll tell you from my experience of what I did. So mine wasn't the typical story of having an epiphany one day and, launching it the other day and going ahead with it. I'll tell you in reality what happened with me was when I was in college, I had thought of Freebirds, but it was not a product. It was a vision of, giving everyone a lifelong learning opportunity that's fun, engaging, exploratory. It was an idea, but it was not a product. But I still didn't stop working towards it. What I did was, me, Radul, and Satya, we used to go to Kunamangalam, down in to the schools that were near our college, and we used to just do workshops that we, felt good doing. We created some interesting things, and when we did that there, the response of the students was amazing. I mean, there were letters that kids wrote to us who said that this was one of the best days of their lives in school. And that kept me going. So when I went to Africa also, in Nigeria and South Africa, I joined IFOSA and GOSI, and we worked with Poverty Stops Here. We tried to understand what does experiential learning mean for the underprivileged, for the bottom of the pyramid. How can we build an ecosystem that facilitates that people through all strata of the society enjoy it. For example, when I was in Nigeria, I had time in hand on Saturday and Sunday, and I wanted to volunteer. I wanted to work with someone who's in that field of experiential learning, and there was no platform to find it. If I wanted to book a show, there was a platform. If I wanted to travel, there was a platform. But if I wanted to really sit with a local and eat the local food, there was no platform. So that's when I really understood the need of it. And once I understood the need of it, I trained myself over the years to think of how to build a product around it. So once I had the product, the idea, and the vision very strong in my mind, what I did last year is, in January, I announced to my company. I was the general manager for Kellogg Tolaram, South Africa, and I was in a critical role because I was handling the country. I took a very calculated decision, and I said, I'm going to go, and now I'm going to start Freebirds. And this is when one critical thing for an entrepreneur comes up is the courage and leap of faith. That's when when you have these ingredients ready, you can't think of how to make the recipe. You have to now, it's time to jump. There's this gut feeling. I don't know if it happened with all of you as well, but there's this internal voice that said it's time and you need to do this. So in January, I announced that I'm going to leave. In 3 months, I found a leader in the organization whom I could hand over my work, because when I was in the workplace, also, I loved my job. I was very passionate about what I was doing at Kellogg's, and I loved building that from scratch as well. I never wanted to, leave the job for the sake of it, but I wanted to do Freebirds. I mean, I always thought of it as, if I didn't do Freebirds in my life, I'd always regret it. But if I try, I better have two things. Number one, confidence. Number two, commitment, that I'll be able to give the next 5 to 10 years towards that. This, no matter what highs and lows I face. So once all those ingredients within me were ready, I took the leap of faith. So I remember my, CEO asked me that, do you have a team yet? Do you have the product ready yet? Why don't you do those things? And that's when I said, no, now I have to devote 100% of the time to it. And by March, I was out. By April, I was here. By August, I did enough pilots in Mumbai, Bangalore, and Guwahati to know that this will work as a business as well. And the team appeared. There are people who wanted to join. They loved the vision mission. I got co-founders, and we launched the tech product by January, although we had done a ton of other experiences stealthily before that as pilots. So yeah, I would say that there are a few things that you need to know. What's your vision? What's your mission? Or what's the purpose? What do you really love to do? What would you love doing all your life? And once you have figured that, try and figure out what the product would be. And you can do all this after you have taken the plunge. There's no before or after. It's up to you to find the sequence. And once that's there, once you know that you will be able to commit to it and do it, for a long time, then it's ready to jump. It's like, take the leap of faith, jump into the ocean. You'll learn to swim along the way. Opportunities will come. Find creative solution. That's all I would, tell people.
Well, that's a great journey, Kritika, and it's full of learning experiences, and it's amazing that you knew at that time that it's something that you want to do, and you don't want to regret it, not doing it. And I just want to share my story because, unlike yours, it wasn't so planned. And it all started that when I was expecting my baby in 2017. I was working at that time in Aditya Birla Fashion and Retail, and I was going to office every day. During the final terms of my pregnancy, I would, struggle to find proper clothing to wear to office because I had grown big, but there was, no comfortable clothing for women around. So I just felt that, why is modernity as a market absent? And that was just a question in my mind. And still at that time, there was no plan to start something like the mom store. But after that, when I had my baby, I realized that even the infant wear market or the infant market as a whole, which is everything from infant products to accessories, there was no single brand which was providing everything to a mother. And we are millennials, unlike the previous generations. We've done our post graduation. We've been working women always and have been very, very independent in our outlook, not just financially, but also in our outlook. And I just felt that all the brands were talking to the kid or to the family, whereas the mother is the key decision here. During my motherhood journey, as well as I know of my friends who became moms, is that they were reading and doing their research about every aspect of every milestone about their pregnancy or, from the infant to toddler growth of their kid. And I just felt that, why isn't anybody treating the mom as a consumer? And that's where I thought that, something needs to be done about it. I did my research, I figured out some products which I felt were not in the market easily available and started with that. I learned and I built my own website. I listed those products. I found the vendors who would supply those. And I moonlighted as an entrepreneur for 8 months. I was, still at my previous job figuring, and at night I would figure out, how do I do this business. But in a period of 5 to 6 months, we got a great response from mommies all over India, and I decided to take this full time. That's when I quit, when I actually knew that this is something that's gonna work, and there has been no looking back since then. We've been able to launch 18 categories, and finally, the aim is to build a whole umbrella brand which caters to everything that a mother needs to enjoy her motherhood journey, right from pregnancy to early motherhood. And that's my story. It was totally unplanned. I had never thought I would start my own business, and it just happened along the way.
Yeah.
If I may add a few things
Yeah.
to what both Surbhi and Ritika have said. So I think in general, it's important to have the passion uh, to, be in a particular space. So for me, for example, I always knew I wanted to be in the food and beverage side of things. And I think another thing that's sort of common between this entire panel as well as entrepreneurs who are doing great work elsewhere is the fact that you're sort of solving a particular problem. So it's important to have that drive and that passion. And I mean, you're taking a plunge to do something that you really like every day. As Ritika mentioned, you're going to do it for the foreseeable future. So it should be in a space that you're very, very keen on. But you also sort of have to look at what exactly you're sort of bringing to the table in terms of, solving a sort of relevant need. Another point of advice that I thought of, sharing with, aspiring entrepreneurs is that while, everybody speaks of sort of the product or the idea, and then ultimately the product as well as the team. I think in terms of, doing really well, the timing is really important. For example, even if you see, the experiences platform, or you look at in terms of blockchain, like Mansi is doing. The timing itself is, you're entering pretty early on, so that I think also sort of will help you in the long run.
Yeah, just adding to that, one thing I would want to say is you don't have to do this alone. Find a
Hmm.
mentor, find a family person, friend, anyone who's willing to champion you, or find an organization. And that's what, organizations like ours, Women in Blockchain, are there to support you in your careers. Find something that you can rely on and use the ecosystem around you, use the network around you to grow. It's always about putting yourself out of the comfort zone and then just taking on that challenge. And just to demystify entrepreneurship and startups a little bit, most startup founders don't know what they're doing, and they're just figuring it out by the day, and that's okay. It's okay to not know certain things. It's okay to figure it out as you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree completely with Mansi over there. I mean, you will probably take a lot of time to figure it out. Some of them probably will be lucky to figure it out and, find success in the early stages. And I mean, the stats and the numbers speak for themselves. A lot of entrepreneurs go through a lot of failures and challenges, but ultimately, I think you should treat it as a learning experience more than you should, and focus more on the learning rather than just finding success and getting that limelight out there in the industry. That will eventually follow you. You need to firstly focus on strengthening your business assets, strengthening your organizational value creation, how you are able to create value for your clients, for your customers, and offer that as the core business mission. And then eventually success will follow. I think that is more important.
Yeah, and even if it doesn't, right, in the last 2 years of doing this, I've learned more than like 10 times
Yeah,
more
Absolutely.
than different
absolutely,
So
topics.
true.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we should all probably, think of all entrepreneurs. Whoever is trying to figure it out, or even
Yeah.
thinking of starting something on their own. I think you should take it up as a fun experience. I mean, it took a long time for me also to understand this ethos of entrepreneurship journey. The very essence of it is I was pressuring myself, and I was pulling up every day, and I was forcing myself to go out and show up and do things and take anything that comes my way, because I felt it as a good learning experience for us. I was not picky, I was not choosy. But then eventually I started realizing that it's more important to have fun. It's more important to
Hmm.
understand that these experiences take you a long way in the future. So it's okay to say no. It's okay to actually become picky, choosy, and make things work your way. You don't have to settle down. You don't have to pick lesser choices, even if it kind of makes business sense to you, but
Hmm.
personally you don't agree with it. You can actually say no. That's something which I think most of our entrepreneur friends miss out, because they don't have the courage to say no to a few things.
Mm. I think very rightly said. It's also about a lot of perseverance that, as an entrepreneur, if you just keep going and, decide that you're not going to give up, and you're not going to quit, and you're just going to keep going and take it as a learning experience, then every day becomes fun. Like, I look forward to Mondays to go to office, and and it's like,
Yeah,
just because you're an entrepreneur. One more thing that I wanted to point out is that just because you're an entrepreneur doesn't mean that you'll just be handling people and everything. You have to go get your hands dirty and do
Hmm.
everything at the grassroots level to actually make it work. Like, I have packed things myself and sent it to the customers. I've handled angry customers and resolved those issues. Just set the office up with my bare hands, moving cartons around, taking out everything, figuring out the shelves, how to organize a warehouse. But it's so much fun. I mean, I would not have it any other way, because in any other job, I would not have got this amount of immense learning that I've been able to get as an entrepreneur. So,
yeah.
ladies, little time left, but let's take a walk down the memory lane. What are your favorite memories from college? And whenever you're doing something in your entrepreneurship journey, what is that one thing that you remember about college that helped you, or that puts you back down the memory lane and makes that life at IMK special?
I think everyone from Section E will say Rubaru, right, Deepa?
Yay. Yeah, I think that was a fantastic start for us, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the
I was
ice-breaking sessions were fun, of course, thanks to our seniors to have pulled off a lot of fun stuff for us. But then I think Rubaru did the real ice breaking for all of us. We all came
Yeah, it was
together.
so much
We were
fun.
initially very competitive, and eventually we partied all together. I think PGP 15, we had some of the greatest parties on campus.
Yeah.
For me, I think it's the people. It's just looking back and seeing all the amazing things that people have done from my batch and other batches, and just being inspired by that.
Yeah, same thing. The inspiration is just tremendous.
Yeah.
And Upalika and I were
We
neighbors.
were balcony mates, right?
And yeah, we shared the same balcony.
Yeah.
And never imagined that we will be sitting here again in a panel
Absolutely.
of talking about our entrepreneurial ventures.
Crazy.
So it's so nostalgic, and it's just amazing, how
Good
the
time.
world goes round.
Yeah. We have two people
Yeah,
from the same section, three people from the same hostel.
Yes.
It's
Oh yeah,
very
oh yeah.
nostalgic. It's very nostalgic.
So
Girls, don't forget your hostel
I was
checking.
here, right? So Deepa took Upalika's room in the
Yeah.
next year. So
Was
Deepa
that?
and I
I was your
Oh,
balcony
I
companion.
forgot about that. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So
So
great
that
memories actually. To me, I think on campus, the best of the memories go back to sports com, of course.
Mm.
Mansi, hey.
Mm.
So I actually have a common factor with each one of you. So I have shared hostels with my hostel with two of you. I've been Ritika's section mate, and me and Mansi were together in the sports com. So I
Wow.
have a common factor with all of you here.
Yeah.
yeah.
and I miss the campus so much. It was so surreal and beautiful. I think
Seriously,
it
this
added to the
was
entire experience so much.
Yeah, every time I see campus pictures on Facebook shared
Mm.
by alumni committee, like I get goosebumps. I can just see endless forests of coconut trees and that mist coming into our rooms.
Oh
yeah.
my God. Yes,
It was
absolutely.
like so fun.
2 years back, I think 2018, a bunch of us went for the 5 year reunion in Nostalgia. It was an amazing experience. A lot of things have changed at the campus.
Oh yeah.
It
Mm.
looks a very lot different from it was earlier. The MTV block is completed. It was under
Nice.
construction when we were there. But
Yeah,
but I think overall, it's still a beauty to look at.
Only if we can relive all that.
Oh my God!
Seriously.
What do to go back?
if I get that chance to do those 2 years again, I will make more out of
Oh,
it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
all of us. I think
Same here.
majority of the batch will wish to go back.
Yeah, but I mean, these are great. The IMK Alumni Association is doing some great
Yeah.
sessions, putting like bringing us together. Right? We haven't
Yeah.
spoken to
Yeah.
each
I'm so
other.
happy this has happened. Yeah.
Could not have had the motivation to do this without Namit from the alumni association, who
True.
actually dragged us all into this together. But thank you, Namit, for doing this, and the alumni association for organizing roll calls with professors and panel discussions. I think it brings that whole campus feel,
Mm.
that nostalgia together, and we all so proud of our batchmates and our alumni achievements together. So I think we are at the top of the hour, so we can just have some of the closing comments. Um, it was great having all of you on the panel today. It's been a great uh, roller coaster journey for all of us in the last 7 years since campus. None of us would have realized that we would be sitting here and talking about entrepreneurship back then in 2013. So it's great, and I'm sure our viewers had fun, as well as they will be viewing this later on YouTube, and I'm sure some of our batchmates will catch up with this video and then give you a call and say, "Hey,
Well,
what's
we
up?"
hope so.
Yeah, and feel free to reach out to me and others on this panel. I'm sure
Yeah.
they'd be happy to share more of their stories. Happy to share any advice or guidance that they have. Feel free to reach out to us.
Or if you have any advice for
Yes,
us,
please.
feel free to reach out to
Yeah.
us.
Look at
I
our
had to learn a lot from Surbi. Like she's training me on digital marketing offline.
Oh man, I'm in on that too.
Yeah, she's amazing at that. Like get
Okay.
tips from her.
I'm in.
Yeah, anytime.
Mutual help.
Yep. So I think that's it for now. And maybe we will meet again at some other panel or,
Really hope so.
yeah.
It was wonderful talking
Awesome.
actually, and of course catching up with all you girls. after a long time. It had been a while since we interacted for such a long time, actually. Exchanging
Yeah.
messages on social media is one thing, but discussing
Right.
actual stuff
Yeah.
like this was very interesting. Thank you. It was wonderful.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Take
Thank
care,
you,
everyone.
everyone. Have a good
Bye.
evening. Bye bye.